All right, welcome to my Deadpool and Wolverine spoiler talk. This is strictly for the people who have seen the movie. If you have not seen it, go ahead and check it out, or check out my non-spoiler review and then come back when you see the film. And trust me, this is one of those movies that the less you know, the better, because the surprises are a big part of why I enjoyed this movie. So go see it and then come back. Now, without any further ado, let's go into the spoilers. This movie should be called Easter Egg the Movie. I don't think there's been a singular Marvel film going all the way back to even X-Men 2000. I don't mean just the MCU. I mean a Marvel adaptation that has had this many Easter eggs. There were Easter eggs to the Fox universe. There were Easter eggs to the MCU, obviously, to real life events involving like producers and people that have worked on the MCU. The movie makes fun of the MCU. Like, they're not afraid to make fun of themselves with this one because they acknowledge that Phase 4 and 5 is a bit of a low point, and he literally says that at one point in the movie, which I thought was hilarious. And it's also got Easter eggs from the comics too. There are so many things in this movie that are borrowed from the comics that I thought I would never see in real life. And the comedy was good. The soundtrack was almost made for millennials. You open the film with NSYNC Bye Bye Bye, and it's a dance number of Deadpool using Logan's, adamantium skeleton from the Logan film as a dance partner. You couldn't ask for a better opening scene than that. That opening scene, right, tells you exactly what this movie's going to be. And here's the thing. This movie rewards you for being a fan of Marvel. And the more Marvel you consume, whether it be the movies, the Disney Plus shows, or even the original comics, the more you appreciate. For example, the fact that we got Henry Cavill as Wolverine. Henry Cavill makes his MCU debut as an alternate timeline Wolverine based on internet rumors. I never thought I would see that, and we got it. We also had multiple different costumes for Wolverine going back to the the 80s, the 70s, the Red Wolverine, his feud with the Hulk. And even the Age of Apocalypse, if you know your Marvel comics, if you are a fan of Wolverine comics, the Easter eggs in this movie, I mean, you could literally do, I don't even know, dude. Like, if I had the film in my possession, I could probably do like a video with like 70 Easter eggs. But I feel like if you're even more well-versed than I am, it's easily over 100. There was so much of that in the movie. The story, though, it's basically, we have to get from point A to point B. We're going to meet all these people on this quest along the way, then go attack to make our way home. It's basically the same or a very similar plot to Quantumania. In fact, this movie has a lot of similarities to Quantumania. Just the fact that Cassandra Nova has made the end of the world, the void, her home, it's no different than what Kang did in Quantumania. It's like the same, almost the exact same premise, just with different characters. And I think it worked, although this version, I don't know how I feel about this version of Cassandra Nova. They got some of the lore right when it came to her backstory, but I didn't think she was a strong villain. I didn't think this was anywhere near on the level of, for example, Killmonger in Black Panther 1 or Thanos. I think this is more of a mid-tier villain. I would actually put this villain below Kang as far as who's more interesting, but it wasn't about them. It was about Deadpool and Wolverine and how they can't get along. They get into 2 or 3 fights in the movie that are ultra violent, but because they both have healing factor, they just regenerate, and so they really milked that gore as much as possible. The thing I will tell you about the cameos, which is I think the big story of this movie, this film was a 20th Century Fox sort of tribute, like a farewell, right? It really, really felt like we were saying goodbye to an era. I've never seen an MCU movie where during the credits they show you behind the scenes stuff from the past and the early days of X-Men. This movie really did feel like it was a goodbye for 20th Century Fox, and it's kind of emotional because they put together a lot of classic films, and it's interesting because This is both Deadpool and Wolverine's first appearance in the MCU. And I love how the whole story is that Daredevil wants to be an Avenger, he wants to be in the MCU, and now he has a chance. They did a great job of using the fourth dimensional, fourth wall jokes for the most part, blending in with the story. It's very hard to do this. It's very difficult to create a character that is this much of a goofy, fourth wall breaking character and have him be taken seriously. But they managed to do it again in this movie with this Daredevil 1 and 2. I think I've not Deadpool. I'm sorry, Deadpool. Now, when it comes to Deadpool, I always thought throughout my life that first he was a villain, but when he became good, that he only really worked for the comics. That you probably couldn't do a Deadpool movie. This is the third one now, and I'm happy to say that I was wrong. All three Deadpool movies are a fun time. All three of them. And this one fits right in. The only reason why I would probably put this one above the other two, I think the first one probably has the strongest story. But I think it's because of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, how they tied Logan into this with X-23. Like, they managed to... It's funny. They managed to, by pretending it was disrespectful, to actually show more respect to the Logan ending. I was thinking they were going to have James McAvoy or Patrick Stewart appear as Xavier. I was expecting to see Ian McKellen as Magneto. We did not get any of that. But I'll tell you one thing. I stayed away from spoilers, and the guy who got the biggest reaction in the movie theater and was the biggest shocker to me was unquestionably Wesley Snipes coming back to play Blade. We never thought that would happen. We never thought, since they already cast like a new Blade, there's going to be a new Blade movie, we never expected to see him, maybe in Secret Wars, right? Maybe there, but he's here. We saw Channing Tatum as Gambit, comic accurate, X-23, and Elektra, and it blew my mind because it was Jennifer Garner playing Elektra again. So they took from everything, Sabretooth they gave away in trailers, and Juggernaut. Now the other big shocker was Chris Evans returning to the MCU. Remember, this was talked about a few years ago after Endgame that he would come back for one more movie. And I thought for sure it would be Secret Wars, where you're going to have both Captain America and Human Torch. But we got Human Torch in this movie, and I loved how they set it up with Deadpool waiting for him to say Avengers Assemble, and instead he said Flame On, and then Pyro took all the fire away from him. That was so freaking cool. Like, I cannot believe they actually went back and referenced that. And it put a big smile on my face. Like, this movie doesn't care. And like I said, there's a lot of comic book Easter eggs. And the movie feels like a big, thick graphic novel come to life. The other big shocker was, I guess you can call it the R-rated version of the Spider-Verse, was when we saw the Deadpool core. They pulled Deadpool's directly out of the comics, and when we actually saw Hugh Jackman don the full Wolverine outfit with the helmet on, and then when him and Deadpool started to shred through all of them, that was a major highlight of the movie. It was probably the goriest thing they've ever done in the history of the MCU, I would say. But that's the way it's supposed to be. That's part of the comedy. And make no mistake, this movie is a comedy. Yeah, it's going to have other genres, a little bit of science fiction with the TVA and the multiverse, a little bit of action, a little bit of adventure, a little bit of superhero comic book stuff, but at the core, it's a comedy. There are jokes made in almost every other scene. The music chosen was funny. Let's not forget that in all the trailers we heard Like a Prayer from Madonna, and the way they used it in the movie during Wolverine and Deadpool shredding up the Deadpool core was perfect, man. Like, this had that same vibe that Guardians of the Galaxy had when it first came out. Same vibe, except, again, more R-rated. Really, when you think about it, this movie plays out like a graphic novel would. Like, there were shots that were taken directly from the comics. like panel for panel almost. It was kind of crazy seeing that. Now, when it comes to the cons, I think when it comes to the things I did not like about the film, and this is the tricky one for me because I enjoyed myself all the way through the movie. I really did. I liked everything. Well, first of all, it did feel like his crew from the previous two movies were not were barely in it. Like his love interest was literally in the film for less than 2 minutes max. And I'm not saying that she had to be because it's not her story, but it does feel like, they were left behind. Also, the big talk going into this is that this movie was going to course correct and fix a lot of the multiverse stuff, and it really did not do that. As far as things stand now, nothing with the lore has really changed. We know maybe new stuff about the TVA and different departments that work within the TVA, mostly for basically the plot of this film with Mr. Paradox and that whole calamity. But the movie was a nice self-contained story, and it was a nice farewell to Fox, even though I think that Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are going to stick around for more MCU films. It could have been a goodbye to a lot of these other characters like Wesley Snipes playing Blade, things of that nature. Not to mention that the thing about the film is nothing's really changed when it comes to the multiverse and the branching timelines. That's all the same. The question is, this movie didn't really add anything to the lore except for one thing. And that is the idea that every universe has a special person that cannot die. That is something that was leaked maybe a year and a half ago by Daniel RPK, that for the main 616 universe is going to be Spider-Man. And basically the idea that if you remove that person from that universe, the timeline begins to implode. That was established here in this film, and I'm sure it'll become relevant in later movies, but it wasn't like this movie did anything at all to change the thing with Kang. That seems to be resolved in Loki more than anything. There's no mention of Loki at all. Like we don't even see like Owen Wilson, Morbius at all in that TVA. We know he works there, but it was connected to Loki because we did see like Eliath and things that were in Loki, but it was missing the two main characters from Loki, which I'm not complaining about necessarily, but again, it wasn't like this film really changed anything. I guess maybe having Deadpool live with Wolverine will eventually lead to both of them rejoining the MCU down the road, probably for one of the big Avengers events. And it almost did feel like at some point they're going to, try again with the X-Men, but I was expecting to see Halle Berry as Storm. Maybe it was my fault. I wanted to see, Famke Janssen as, or whatever her name is, as Jean Grey. Like, we didn't see any of that. And I think some people are going to be let down by that. But the cameos we did get, like I mentioned Wesley Snipes, that was totally unexpected. Jennifer Garner, like, it really did feel more like an end to Fox than them actually, like, bringing Daredevil and Wolverine into the MCU. They're in the MCU from the perspective of the audience, but they're not in the 616 Earth. They're in their own Earth, and that Earth obviously will play a role in the upcoming Avengers films, but it wasn't like they moved over to the MCU. It's kind of crazy that they actually got Ray Park to come back and play Toad. That's phenomenal. The other big sort of, I guess, there was one other thing about the future. There was something that could be relevant or it could just be a gag for this film, is when Deadpool was in the TVA and he saw that scene that was supposed to be in the future of Thor holding Deadpool almost like he was dying. And he didn't know why. And so either that's actually a teaser for something that we're going to see probably in the Avengers movies coming up, or if that was just there as a possible road, like a possible timeline, maybe not the main timeline, the sacred timeline. I feel like that means more. I feel like that could be an actual premonition of what's to come in the next Avengers movie. If they really have all this planned out right, then it could easily be that. Also, yes, B-15 was here as well. Also, something else I have mixed feelings about. That whole thing with Peter, how, Peter was the guy that stopped the Deadpool like Civil War or whatever when they were all fighting Wade and Logan. That I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I'm not saying I hated it because it's funny and it works for that character and shows how dumb those Deadpools are, how they're ultimately, just idiots, which is part of the charm of it all. But at the same time, it was kind of a lame way to end that fight. Just being honest, like, I could think of probably a better scenario that they could have done, like maybe had somehow convinced the other Deadpools that keeping Wade alive is important for the multiverse or something like that. I don't know. But instead it was Peter and they all just went over to him because they love him. Again, I was funny, but was it really a good ending to the fight? I'm not sure about that. Also, how crazy is it that Matthew McConaughey is Cowboy Deadpool? I would have never believed that. That's like the Nicolas Cage doing Spider Noir. It's that level of goofy, and I like it. Samurai Deadpool was awesome too. Like, it was fun seeing all that. I enjoyed this movie, but like I said before, I think it's going to take more than just one movie for people to get reinvested in the MCU. I think they're going to have to really get in shape. I think Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts has to be good. The Daredevil show has to be good. And really, I feel like Fantastic Four might be the big important film of this phase because it's going to set up Secret Wars from what we understand. So they have to really knock that one out of the park too, and that may take place in a different universe like this movie did. This movie took place in about 3 or 4 different, not including like when Deadpool was trying to find Logan, but like there was 616, there was 10,005, and then there was the Void. So there's a lot of different places that it took place in, and I think that that's a teaser of what's to come. I think this movie did the multiverse story better than the Doctor Strange film. Although they were very similar because the Strange film had all those cameos from the Marvel Illuminati in that alternate timeline. Here we have a bunch of X-Men characters and Human Torch and Wesley Snipes Wesley Snipes as Blade, and the fact that Wesley Snipes doesn't like Ryan Reynolds and that became a story. Like, they were not ashamed to shatter that fourth wall. I don't know what I was watching, but I know I had a good time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.